Have you ever made a bad decision? I know I have. A few weeks ago, I was away at a conference, and the plan on that final evening was for the delegates to meet up for dinner close to our hotel. So after that last session, I rushed back to the hotel to change, and then I headed to the restaurant to meet up with everyone. Here's the thing. The whole week it had rained, which is very typical for Vancouver in the spring. And I was disappointed, but on that evening, the sun showed up and it was shining beautifully, which meant that everyone decided that instead of staying near the hotel, we'd walk down to the harbor to catch the sunset. The problem was I was wearing shoes that you should not walk a dozen blocks in. And there was this moment where I contemplated running back to change at the hotel. But it was so nice. And I thought, Jessica, you're still young. You're going to be fine. And so I decided I would just head down in my inappropriate footwear for walking. Friends, that was a bad decision because the next morning, my foot felt different. It was like a pain was shooting into my heel. And each day after that, it got worse and worse. And still a month later, I find myself wincing in pain every morning that I step out of bed. And if you know this pain, then you know the diagnosis. Plantar fasciitis. Friends, it's hard to live with the reality that a month of agony and intense pain could have just been easily prevented if I had just made a better decision that evening in Vancouver. Instead, I'm now learning a hard lesson that bad decisions often lead to painful consequences. Did you know that the Bible talks a lot about decision making? In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, it says that we can ask God for wisdom when we're making decisions in life, and God will help us to choose the best path to take. And so if you'd like to make better decisions in your life, the first step is simply to ask God to give you wisdom, to admit, God, I'm limited in my humanity, and I need you to help me make better decisions in my life. Now, the second step in making better decisions, though, is to fight against our human tendency, which is to go numb or indifferent to our lives. Instead of this, the Bible says that we should choose intentionality. To do that, here are 3 questions you can ask to be intentional about making decisions in your life. First, consider your past history. Studies show us that decisions that we have made in the past are the best indicator for the decisions that we are going to make in the future. If you tend to make the same decisions over and over in life, chances are that you will continue to make similar choices if you aren't aware of them. So if you want to be aware of what your tendency is, especially if you want to change it, ask yourself. Another part of your past history that you want to be intentionally be aware of are your family patterns. Are there missteps that the generations before you have taken? Can you identify any patterns in their strengths or their weaknesses? Experts would tell us that these patterns are also indicators of the likelihood that you will choose a similar path. Now, if the patterns of the generations before you are positive, these likely will work out in your favor. But if the family patterns in your family history are difficult, intentionally being aware of them can help you actually make different choices for your future. Then, after you've considered your past history, you want to consider your present realities. To do this, ask yourself, what are the present realities of my current situation in regards to my physical health, my emotional health, spiritual health, relational health, mental health, even financial health? And how will these things either hinder or help me as I make decisions in my life? For example, if you want to make a decision to run a marathon this year, then you might want to look at your physical health to determine if a marathon is possible. And you might discover you need to take some steps before signing up for that marathon next week. Or maybe you want to buy a condo or a car next year. If so, you might want to take a look at your financial health today to determine when you'll be ready to pull the trigger on that decision. And in doing so, you might discover there are a few key steps that you're going to need to make happen before you can have ready to put that down payment down. Intentionally looking at our present realities actually helps us to make better decisions for today that will help lead to health for tomorrow. And then after you've considered your past history and your present realities, the final thing you need to consider are your future goals. Ask yourself, where do I want to be in the next month, 6 months, year, or 5 years down the road? Where do you want your relationships to be at? Where would you like your career to be at? Where would you like your family to be at? For this one, you want to write down some of those future goals because taking the time to intentionally envision and write them down will actually help you to be more intentional about making wise decisions. Write down where you want to be in the future and then make decisions that will lead you to that goal. And then finally, after you've taken the time to consider those 3 areas, the patterns of your past, the realities of your present, and those goals of your future, you want to ask yourself this simple question. When I look at my past history, my present realities, and my future goals, what is the wise decision that I should be making right now? Friends, this simple question will actually help you make and remain intentional about making better choices in your life. Instead of leaving things to chance, recognize that on your own, your human knowledge is limited. So instead of leaning on your own understanding and ability to make good decisions, why not take God up on his offer and ask him for wisdom? And then, after you've asked him to guide you, commit to doing the work of taking his wisdom that he gives you and turning it into action so that you can make better decisions in your future.